Welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site, we have Ron Quaranta and Steve Ehrlich. They're both with Wall Street Blockchain Alliance. We are here to look at their regulatory, tech, and product trends for 2019. It's great to have you both back with me in the studio. And I'm going to kick it off with you, Ron. What are some of the expectations coming from the regulators for 2019?
Sure, and thanks for having us. It's really an interesting conversation when we have this dialogue with our members across banking and trading and exchanges and financial technology from a regulatory perspective, which is still one of the real challenges for the industry. It becomes a question of what happens as blockchain evolves and how does that affect different industries? And are those industries prepared from a regulatory perspective to police the implementations of blockchain? So look at things like supply chain and banking and clearing and settlement. And taking that a step further, when you look at things like crypto assets, that world's still evolving, and regulators who are now much more educated about it than they were 2-3 years ago are trying to see the frameworks evolve to allow that to be real in the world of financial markets, and that's what we do for our members as well.
Right, and so Steve, let's talk about this with the technological trends for 2019. I feel like the industry is like, this is a time we need to start implementing and putting what's in theory into practice at this point.
Sure. So there's a lot going on from the technological point of view that we're paying attention to this year. One of the big issues, honestly, is something that I think most people probably think has already been solved. The fact that there's still big issues related to the scalability of blockchain technology. We like to say that there's trade-offs between centralization, privacy, and throughput, and no one's really found the right mixture of it yet. Bitcoin famously can only handle about 7 transactions a second. Ethereum is not much more, and there are some scalability, some scaling technologies out there, both at the protocol level and then what we like to call second level scalability issues, but solutions, excuse me. But they actually lead to additional degrees of centralization that the industry may not really be looking for.
All right, now Ron, you spoke about the ICO market before. Have we learned any lessons? Are there any takeaways for 2019?
God, I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I think a lot of what's happened, and we've seen the bubble come out of the ICO frenzy, and I remember some statistic that by far the majority of ICOs that came out were in some way fraudulent or really weren't ready for investment particularly. I think what we're beginning to see is the emergence and evolution of capital raising. Will crypto assets and blockchain and security token offerings and this kind of idea of tokenizing how a company capitalizes itself, how it raises money, and that's a conversation we have on a regular basis. We meet with regulators at SEC, for example. We have a legal working group that talks about this on a regular basis. How do capital markets evolve? How does capital raising evolve because of crypto assets? And regulators are deeply tied into those conversations right now. There'll be more enforcement, I'll bet. But what we're watching is that evolution of capital raising, we believe.
Right, and Steve, I would argue that that's the biggest challenge is enterprise adoption, and we just can't seem to move on.
No, we can't. I mean, at some point the rubber needs to meet the road, and enterprises actually need to implement this technology at scale, which is not something that's easy to do because blockchain technology, most people forget, is also competing for innovation budgets from things like AI, robotics, big data that have a much more tangible benefit to companies' bottom line. So those companies, if they want to implement blockchain, they need to have strong advocates internally for them, and you almost need to believe in some degrees that that you're going for a solution or a benefit that is a little ephemeral at this point.
All right, and so Ron, let's wrap it up with you. How positive are you on the future? I mean, do you think blockchain's taking a backseat to where CapEx spending is coming from in terms of AI and machine learning and all that?
Yeah, I always find that where these things are evolving, these new innovations are evolving, there's kind of that bit of uneven evolution. So certainly blockchain for a while stopped being the bright shiny star and everyone was focused on AI, for example. In the conversations that we have and kind of what we focus on doing, there's real change happening in global markets, leveraging these innovations and including leveraging blockchain technology. What I often tell my colleagues is it's here and it's here to stay. And you need to be part of how it evolves in our markets.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us at MarketSite. Look forward to having you back. And thank you for joining me. I'm